Coming to you from the Stream.tv studios in Hollywood, California, Pensado's Place is brought to you by Vintage King, Avid, Recording Connection, and the Blackbird Academy.
This Noah's musical arc has just been incredible. We've got 3 new winners. We got a lot going on. We're going to tell you some more information about the Pensado Awards. Lord God, you're at the place. It's Pensado's Place.
Yay! If you listen very close, in honor of my Canadian friends, I didn't go, yay, I went, hey.
There you go. Very good, David. Very good. I respect that.
Did I cross some kind of line there?
No, it's perfectly Canadian.
Just checking. How you been?
I'm good, man. How are you? Well, I'm getting better, but I'm cool.
Glad to see you.
Yeah, you too. You too. How you been?
You know what? Recording and recording. I wish I could do something different in my life. I don't know. You know? I've
seen a few emails that have been sent to you about your recording and recording, and you're being modest.
We're on a little roll. Good people. Good people.
We've been blessed with good people all around.
Great people.
Shall we get to it?
Let's do it.
Cool, cool, cool. Hey everyone, it is great to see you. Hope all is well out in audio land. You are liking and subscribing. We are liking and vibing. It is huge for us, Dave and I. Thank you profusely. It has huge impact. Last week we visited our Vintage King family. We sat down with a bunch of you for their rollout of the Avid S6 console. For Dave and I, it was really cool to spend time with a bunch of you guys who came, met some more Pensado students, hung out with them. By the way, guys, set up that Google Hang for me. We're going to knock that out. Avid is busy working on Avid Connect for April. Of course, launching their console and coming up with more workflow solutions for each of you. Let's support that effort. That's a good effort to support, correct?
Absolutely.
Cool part, the talented team at the Blackbird Academy, we're putting together a major initiative about the world of live. We think that there are job opportunities there that exist, that your skills are transferable to other idioms. They have a phenomenal education that they provide in that space. This is not lightweight stuff. John McBride still goes on the road and does live sound. The teachers who teach it do live audio at the highest levels. John is also president of a major touring company. This is going to be really awesome. Stay tuned for that. We're putting that together.
My heart goes out to the live world. The live guys, those guys earn their money.
They're serious dudes. They're serious dudes. And ladies, by the way.
Yeah, true.
And it's the final week of the Recording Connection contest. Phenomenal response. Remember, Recording Connection, learning where you live, one-to-one, mentor to mentee. We actually have one of the Canadian mentors in the house today. It's his birthday. We're happy to have him here. We've got 3 winners. Dave, who are the lucky 3 names?
Well, we've got Max Harrigan, we've got Rosalinda Garcia, and Gotham Seth Maji.
Yay! Congratulations, you guys. You can hear the applause in the back. The RC folks will be in touch with you. For the rest of you guys, go to the Recording Connection website, check them out, have some communication with them. They will speak with you at any given time. And finally, for our audio cause, the Pensado Awards. Next week, our man Will Thompson will be on air live for about 10 minutes, and all the finalized details will get unpacked. We are finally at that place. Now, when I say we're finally at that place, it's a happy place.
Yeah.
Right?
It's an expensive place.
It's an expensive place. But you know what?
Got to do it right for the guys.
Yeah,
you know?
we just don't know any other way other than to do it right for you, because you guys have done it right. So be there for your audio coming together. And to what Dave's talking about, I think we made the right decision in being sure that we live up to the mission. We want to celebrate the uncelebrated, show the world how badass the audio community is, show the world that, yes, our community works together. We take care of our own. The world is really silent without us, and that's not a really cool world to live in. The watering hole, fundanything.com/Pensado. That's fundanything.com/Pensado. Next week, Will Thompson, the man, lays it all out. What do you think, DP?
Well, we need their help, so check that email address Herb just mentioned. But yeah, you know what? a lot of people do award shows extremely well, not complaining about that, although I have complained a little bit in the past. But we just want to try it our own way, and we need your help. And I think our way is going to be cool because it's for everybody, you know, pros, amateurs.
Mm-hmm. We were very gifted last week in that timing and location and flights worked out. We got to snare a major guy out of Canada. Listen, I just committed. We got the Canadian shirt. We got Canadian maple syrup. Dave did a Canadian yay. We got Eric Eggleston in here. He's a Canadian. He's a mentor up in Ottawa.
I drank some Royal Crown on the way in.
He did that. If I could get to some smoked meat, it's just not allowed in America, I'd do that. Anyways, our guest name is Noah, and that's his first name, and he's used his skills brilliantly to really part musical waters and bring people together.
Yeah, and a good guy.
This is another one for Dave and I that we snagged and thoroughly enjoyed. We think you will too. Folks, meet the awesome and Canadian Noah 40 Shebib, my friend.
How you doing?
How are you, man?
Pleasure's all mine.
Thank you.
Good to see you, man.
Dave, tee up. Let's have
Yeah.
this conversation.
When I listen to your work and listen to your productions and mixes, there's a big visual element in there for me. I see sounds. I don't just hear them. Is that a function of your background or the way you hear music, the way you've always heard music? It is intentional first, right?
I think so. I mean, a lot of producers, especially in rap music, start by programming drums and getting a groove to the song, and that's where they build out their music. But I start with melodies and chord progressions. I'm very much based on music and feeling and emotion, you know? So I strive to create an emotion or create a feeling and then give it to an artist and hope that whatever they write or whatever the writer writes is going to be synonymous with that feeling, and they're going to both send the same message and therefore deliver what the song is supposed to do. So as a producer, and a mixer, I try to create a feeling first.
Is that where the ambient kind of
100%.
approach to what you do?
And that came from two. See, my background is an engineer, so I started tracking, and that was very conscious on my part because as a producer, I wanted to know what I was doing, you know, and I wanted to make sure I could do everything myself if I so choose to. And so when I started atmospheric stuff and, you know, rolling off frequencies and cutting the sample rate down, and everyone assumes I use a low pass, but I'm actually just cutting the sample rate. When I do those types of things, I'm creating space for vocals as well, you know? Like, I wanted people to hear the artist, Drake for the most part, because that's who I started a lot of this work with.
Yeah.
And I wanted him to be very vivid standing on top of these tracks. So I started pulling out the top end of a lot of the tracks to let the vocal actually fill that space. And I was also just trying to break a little rules, like be creative in a sense of like, who does that? Who actually like rolls all the top off of their drums? Like, you would have to be crazy to do that,
Right,
you know?
right.
And so it was sort of like a cool thing to try and attack, you know?
Extending on that thought, what I've kind of noticed is you 0-0, you can't have a kick drum louder than anybody else on earth.
No.
So all you can do is make everything else softer. But you always find one element in a track. We're going to talk about one of those in a minute, like maybe a quarter note repeating keyboard part, and it's kind of louder. And then the particular elements we're talking about now, you put them a step behind that, and so you find a way to make them available to me to hear, so I can hear the chord changes and all that. But they're back enough to where the kick drum still sounds monstrous, and I love that. I'm stealing it. It's mine. I invented it. So
And you do that on purpose. I mean,
100%. You know, I'm
thinking
always
that through.
that's always a struggle, especially in rap music or any pop music. But it's to find that balance of where your kick's going to sit and how hard it's going to hit. You know, I mean, that's, you know, the major difference between a rock mix and a rap mix is that, you know, in the rap world, you want that kick to crush you, and that's your priority. And so, of course, like as you said, you're gonna have to make room for it. You know, something else is gonna have to sacrifice if you want that thing to take the front position and take the lead and be the most impactful part, right?
Yeah.
And as you said, by staging sort of where things sit in the sample rate and or the frequency range, you're creating those spaces for them. And so I very distinguishedly put them into areas of the EQ curve, you know, much more so than, say, other people might have done it from a technical engineering standpoint. Well, no, you can't EQ it like that. I mean, you're taking out frequencies. Well, yes, I am.
Right.
That's my point.
Herb, this is kind of a question for you.
Okay.
Don't you feel like we've heard his work forever, and we both big fans. I know you very intimately familiar. Now that we've met him, don't you feel like we knew him all along from his work?
It's so synonymous.
It's so weird.
It's so synonymous that because what I found interesting about Drake and the whole thing is that the multiplicity of what he can be as a talent.
Yes.
Whether it was, and you also were on television as well too. So whether it's the actor or the guy who has complete cred in the rap game, or if he wants to be funny, or the the stud guy, all that kind of stuff, that's hard to do. And if your music doesn't define you in such a way that allows you to do that, and he just represents that kind of thing. It kind of couldn't happen without that, I don't think, right?
Without the music component.
Well, yeah. Don't you think?
He's a very multi-talented person, and he covers a lot of ground. So it's funny when you're getting into this business and you want to be an artist, or you want to be a producer, or you want to be one of these things. Artist is the funniest because artist is not synonymous with singer.
That's exactly correct.
These are two totally different things. And I don't care how good you can sing. That's sort of, that's a prerequisite. You got to sing amazing, or rap, or whatever your talent is. You have to be phenomenal to get in the door to have a conversation about being an artist.
Absolutely.
Okay, now you're in the door to have the conversation, but that is not the prerequisite.
That's right.
The prerequisite is much deeper than that. And Drake just happens to be somebody whose arsenal of tools for being an artist is deep.
Deep. I mean, he went from Nickelodeon to that. It seemed like a blink in the eye. It never is, but he was good at it all. I mean,
he was great on
Matter of fact,
he did a great job on SNL.
When you see him, tell him his Cat Williams thing on Saturday Night Live.
That was great.
Okay, that undid me.
He's a great mimic.
Like, oh my God, he was so good. So please tell him from Pensado's Place.
Sure.
Absolutely.
The song Marvin's Room, when I first heard that song, Nettlesby and McLean are both great friends of ours in the show, and I was like, oh my gosh, he did a song and named it after a studio. That was so great. And I love that song. And I also love that you guys break every rule. You do what the hell you want, but you do it with control, intelligence, and creativity. So before the album comes out, you release it on OVO Records on your blog.
Yep.
And you're not supposed to do that.
No, we broke a lot of rules with that song. All of them. Technical ones, sonic ones, what we should and shouldn't be doing, creative ones, business ones, That song to me was never a record that was going to have any legs. I mean, it was that's me and Drake just having fun. Okay, we did all the other stuff we were supposed to do today. Let's enjoy ourselves, So to see that connect so much with people, because it was just something that was, I guess, passionate and truthful, was amazing. But I didn't see it. I had no idea that was going to happen, or it was going to be. It was the #1 record at Urban Radio.
Yeah, amazing. Well, it's kind of the best way. Just put your head down, do your thing.
Of course, but I mean, if you look at what you should be doing for a radio record, that was not
wrong.
it. It was all wrong. I mean, it had a great chorus and it was written very beautifully, very very strongly written record. But as far as tempo and so on and so forth, it was I didn't really know.
Do you write as well?
No, I don't actually. I'm terrified of writing lyrics.
Is that right?
Yes, terrified. It's funny. I don't know why.
That's interesting.
I don't know why. I refuse to do it.
Because you do so many things well.
Why?
Because you said
Because I know why too, and I'll tell you in a second.
Okay, tell me if I'm right. Because I'm going to paraphrase. I can't remember exactly what you said, but and I don't remember the context, so help me. But you said that an interesting thing about rap is if someone else writes your rap, you don't have credibility and you're going to be out of the game in a second. But anybody can write the music for you. And that's kind of an unusual thing about that genre that we don't really think about. Because in the rock world, that would be unacceptable. People can help you with the lyrics, but not the guitar part.
Exactly, right? It's
and
the
so
opposite.
The fact that particular type of music relies so heavily on the lyric content, you put extra pressure on yourself.
Yeah, and it's just a bit of a fear too. It's a real comfort zone.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, to mention
But on the music side, you get a free pass.
Yeah, I get a free pass. But that's at the end of the day, if it's a rapper, it's their story to tell. And at the same time, you're always looking to make things better. My job as a producer or an engineer, in my opinion, is to help the artist deliver what they want to deliver and get the best product at any cost. So if I have an idea, I mean, maybe I'll bring it up, but I've got to be pretty comfortable with that artist to bring up an idea for a vocal.
And I think I think you guys have had this sort of weighted kind of experience. I mean, in my intro, it's been 5 years of just a hurricane. You're sitting at the eye of something that just kept getting bigger and hotter and bigger and hotter. And along that way, I thought you guys changed the paradigm musically, you know, even the way what Drake would rap about and the lyrics and so on and so forth, who he was as a rapper. And so you've got the load of constantly sort of being ahead. Do you feel that pressure sometimes, or do you just do what comes from your heart?
Now we do, for sure.
Okay.
You know, I don't think we noticed before. I mean, we were working so hard trying to achieve just recognition. I mean, we had no idea what we were getting ourselves into.
Right.
And I suppose even when we had been recognized, we didn't realize it, and we just kept pushing and pushing and pushing.
Right.
So at this stage now, we sit back and, you know, stop and realize, like, wow, he's really one of the biggest artists in the world. I mean, I never thought I'd be able to say that. So that's an accomplishment, and it comes with a little bit of weight and pressure. You know, as far as what do we do next, where do we go musically? Do we do the same thing that people love us for, or is that stagnant and stale? Do we do something different?
Always
Are we groundbreaking? Do we want to do something new and kick open a brand new door? Are we prepared for that? I mean, these are conversations we have to have, as any artist does.
Started from the bottom. Now you're here.
I mean, when I first heard "So Far Gone," you guys hit the ground there. You know, you were like, that was pretty.
Well, that's
impressive.
a funny thing to come into the game with something like that, right? Like, you know, John Mayer had this thing he said, and I've heard it from many artists, which is you get your whole life to make your first album, but you only have a few months to make your second.
Absolutely.
And, you know, we had our whole lives to make So Far Gone, and that was a real epiphany for me and Drake, and we discovered something at that point, and we sort of worked it, and at the time we put it out, we had no idea if it was going to be successful.
Right.
You know, I'd made the thing on a laptop in hotel rooms, literally. I mean, there's photos of it, like literally hanging mics off hotels, clipping pillows to hangers and sticking them on the walls, and like anything you could imagine, you know, collecting all the duvets from all the rooms from everybody that had hotels out, you know, and just like camped out and built like forts like a kid, aka recording rooms in the studios, in the hotel rooms, and that's where we cut that whole project and mixed it on a pair of AKG headphones and like clock radios as reference points that I'd plug into my mini jack of my MacBook. I had an MBox 2 Pro, and that was it. A TLM 103, that was it. Like nothing.
That's how you made that record.
That whole album was done on a TLM 103, an MBox 2 Pro, and an old MacBook.
Amazing.
Yeah. I think I might have had a couple sessions like along the ways that we might have recorded, but
still.
Between there and like that same rig at my condo in Toronto that I had, you know, I was sharing with my roommate Oliver at the time, you know, that was where we did that whole project.
Wow.
So.
Wow.
That's humbling. That's pretty cool.
But I mean, that thing, we discovered something, and so that's the conversation, you know, do we go back there?
Right.
Do we evolve from that? Do we take that and, you know, turn that into something different? Because it's a very distinct sound, you know, it's a very distinct sort of feeling, and we've run with that again throughout his career in different times, and even something like Marvin's Room could be attributed to be inspired somewhat from what happened in So Far Gone, and so on and so forth. Very minimalistic, and that whole discovery was made there.
Let me take a chance. This might be a failure. If it is, we'll edit it out. Take me on four records, and just the first thing that comes to your mind, the difference between, and I'm going in chronological order. So the difference from So Far Gone to Thank Me Later would have been, in your mind, what was the biggest change?
The biggest change was polish. Putting more radio-friendly records and more things that were going to have impact in clubs and radio than So Far Gone.
Thank Me Later to Take Care, what changed?
Going backwards a bit, going back towards Take Care. So weighting it with more records, that's why we put so much on it, but incorporating more of those moments, more of the moods, more of those type of feelings and atmospheres, opposed to just going for like radio cut records, but still giving you some radio records on there as well. So we tried to balance it out a little bit.
And from there to the Nothing record.
I feel like that was where we perfected what we were trying to achieve since Thank Me Later. After So Far Gone, we decided like, okay, well, let's try and make this record that's going to give us our cake and eat it too. That's going to maybe have some elements of So Far Gone and some of that, you know, that truthfulness and that honesty in it, but also give us records that we know will work and are proper, put together and formulated records. And there's something to be said about the formula of a song per se. You know, you want to break it at times, but there's a reason why it's worked for the last 100 years, okay? Because it's manipulative when that bridge comes around at that point and finally that chord progression breaks. It does something to you inside of you, and that's how you manipulate your listener and make them go, oh God, it's so good, you know? That's why we arrange songs that way. So if you can have it original and different, but still pull that into the mix, then I feel like you're really winning. And so we've always been trying to get there since after So Far Gone. And with Thank Me Later, I think we felt maybe it was a little too clean or it wasn't wasn't enough of the So Far Gone. Take Care at the time, we maybe didn't realize it. I thought, or we both, and I still do think it was a little oversaturated and it could have been a better record if we had pulled back from it a bit. I think we tried too hard out of like anxiousness and anxiety to put too much on it, to cover too much ground. And then Nothing Was the Same was a more concise and a little bit of a more focused attempt at bringing both of those worlds together. And now that we've completed Nothing Was the Same, you know, the conversation is, where do we go now? Because we feel like we finally achieved what we've been trying to achieve out of these albums for the last while. Not to say that Nothing Was the Same is the best or the epitome of his career, but just personally for us as musicians, we finally did. So,
and you gave me a great segue. On headlines, you squeezed the piss out of that song.
Yeah,
you went nuts on that song.
It hurts.
Yeah, but I like it. What does that make me? I mean, a masochist in terms of audio?
Possibly, yes. But there's things to be said about that.
That's absolutely right.
I love it. We talked a little bit last night about.
Did you listen to it recently, or are you just saying that?
No,
you have to listen to it and really realize what it sounds like.
I never listen to anything. I got this stuff in my soul, man. But I remember the first time I heard it, thinking, man, if that was my clients, I'd be turning this stuff down, and I'd get the distortion complaint and everything else. But you made it musical, and it's more than just cramming a bunch of stuff and lo-fiing everything and saturating everything. That's easy. Plugins do that, but to make it musical and take my mind away from it very quickly as an engineer and become a fan again, that's pretty masterfully done.
I think I went into like another universe while I was mixing that record. So I tried a couple things, if I remember correctly, even potentially mixing with other mixers and trying someone else to get a pass at it. That just didn't end up working. And
what's your friend, your mentor? What's his name?
Gadget.
Yeah, we got to give him a shout out.
Yeah. Oh God, yes. That's my boss right there.
Cool.
That's my guy.
Cool.
Yeah.
So I don't believe I gave headlines to Gadget, but I'd given it to someone else, and the mixes we got back just weren't there, and it lost the anxiety. And I think anxiety was the word for that song that I was trying to achieve. And we'd gone to Jamaica, so we were at G Jam Recording Studios in Jamaica, and they had I didn't really use any of their gear there per se. I think I stayed completely inside the box for that mix because I was on an island and wanted to make sure that I could access these things later if I needed to. And I was having a problem, you know, like it wasn't mixed. It didn't sound like it was mixed, but every time it got mixed, it sounded like it lost everything. And it's just one of those paradoxes. Like, what do? You know, do you mix it and make the quality better and the bass warmer and the top end cleaner, or do you just leave it distorted and crunched and messed up and full of artifacts, because that's what gave it its sound? And as you know, as crazy as that seems as an engineer and somebody who cares about quality and the longevity of this product to stand the test of time, it had something from a creative standpoint that you just can't deny. So I literally just like gave up and got fed up and went into the studio and was like, I'm doing it, I'm mixing it. And I think I stayed up for a night or two and just mixed it in that little studio in Jamaica and just made it happen. And I knew I was doing things I shouldn't be doing. I knew I was hitting digital reds. I knew I was clipping. I knew bad things were happening. I knew my bottom end really wasn't there because I had way too much going on in the top end. But it just moved. It had the anxiety. It had the feel and the sort of groove. And it's like what you're saying. The distortion ended up being almost an instrument in there. And it's very difficult to like achieve that with digital distortion because it was painful for me at times. And I was very insecure about that mix. I was terrified.
I can imagine.
The only thing was I felt, and this was the chance that we took. You know, Drake deals with realities. And as an engineer, sometimes you forget about your realities and think about what you know. Oh, you can't do that. Oh, you can't do that. You can't turn 24 dB up at 10K. No way. You can't do that. Well, you can. And the answer is, if it sounds correct to your ears, you're right. And so for that song, we were playing it out of his laptop, man. We're coming back out of MacBooks. And at the end of the day, 99%, not 99%, a big portion of music listeners to this day, or in this day, listen to music for the first time out of laptop speakers.
Right.
You know, because they're on a blog or on a website or they're on iTunes and they press the preview button and they hear it out of their laptop speakers. That's their first impression.
That's right.
And at the time with headlines, that's early in Drake's career, we're making first impressions. So I wanted a song that was going to come out of a laptop speaker off a blog and be like, whoa, what is that? Now, when you plug in a, an 18-inch sub on it, you're not going to hear much, you know? But the point is that when it hits you out of that laptop, it worked. And that's what Drake wanted, and that was a chance that I took as an engineer to say, you know what? Let me mix this for a goddamn laptop. Let's see what happens. And then, choo, went #1.
Wow. And
it kind of worked on the radio. It was really loud and crunchy, but it worked. It stuck out a bit. And
worked.
Just was it hard to fit it into the album.
A lot of people, that's what I was about to say, a lot of people working at home don't realize that a person in your position, once they get that, which was hard enough and spectacular, now you got to fit it in with 10 other songs.
Well, that was the worst part about that song, is that I wasn't willing to make that sacrifice on an entire album, you know? I mean, that was a radio single. It had a purpose. The one thing I kind of got away with is that it had come out a few months before the project, maybe even almost 6 months or 5 or 6 months before the album. So it had been out for a while and had lived, and so I sort of treated it as its own entity. But definitely had to pull it back. I think in mastering, I might have pulled it back below 0. Like I pulled it back, like maybe 1.5 dB on the master to like let it sit better with the rest of the album because it was just too loud.
Wow, wow.
One of the things I'm noticing about your work, and you've got this affinity for 90s snares, like everything in your mix will be dark, and more often than not, like on songs like Unthinkable Forever, Headlines, the snare is the most top end of anything in the mix. Some of them actually do have 24 dB of 10K.
Yes, they do.
Explain the philosophy, because I think I know what it is. You need the snare for groove, and you're giving away some top end on other groove elements.
Exactly.
So you want to make sure that we've
Something's
got something
cut
to bounce Dre's 8th and 16th note parts off against, right? Is that what you're trying to do?
100%. I need something to cut through in the top end, but it's such a quick transient that it actually doesn't have that much significance in the long run because it's gone in a second, and the rest of the lows and mids can sort of rumble through the record, you know? But it's funny, Drake's horrible at keeping time.
Is he really?
Horrible.
I
mean, ask him to tap a hi-hat along with a beat, and he's got a real hard time. Never mind like triplets or something like that. Like he's screwed, you know? And so this one day, me and Drake are in the studio, and I'm like, what? It doesn't make sense. Like, you're too talented of a musician and a rapper, and your cadence and your timing is so impeccable. He hears, mind you, like 3 milliseconds shift, okay? He'll tell me, all right? Like, maybe not 3, but like 10 he hears, like that, okay? Something's off. What's going on? I like check my delay compensation. I'm like, how did you hear that? You know, I'm working at 64 samples. Like, what are you talking about? So his timing is so strong in that regard. It didn't make any sense. And what he said to me is like, I don't hear. He said, we finally figured it out. He said, I don't hear the beat. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, I hear the spaces in between the beat. And I was like, oh my God.
Interesting.
Very interesting. But it made perfect sense. You know, he's, as a rapper or a singer, he's trying to find the cadence in between the transients. He's not, whereas me as an engineer, I'm thinking mathematically. I'm listening to 1 and 3. Like, I'm listening to the transients of the kick and the snare, you know? So that also let me pull away all these elements out of the music and make it sparse and give these big gaps for him to hear and then come and fill.
Does this play into your concept that in an R&B song you've got 4 sentences per verse, in a rap song you got 4 sentences per bar? and so you got to have a way to organize that stuff, right?
100%. And I wanted Drake to be audible. One of my problems with rap music is when you couldn't understand it. And my mother is a theater actress, and my family are all performers. So I grew up in a house of, you know, filmmakers and performers and actors. And my mother would always say to me when I was working with my rap crew when I was 16, she'd always say, oh, I love it. This is amazing, though. But I can't understand a fucking word they're saying.
Your mother cusses?
My mother cusses.
Okay, just clarifying that.
Woof!
Tell her I said hello.
I will.
Tell her we said hello, absolutely.
So anyway, she would always make that point to me. And so I took it upon myself to make that a priority in the music that I was making, to make it audible, you know? And now that being said, Drake, for instance, happens to be a very articulate and well-spoken individual who delivers things that are very audible and people can understand. But it is important, you know, because sometimes it's a feeling, but like, you know, you want a message if you're going to really impact somebody. So.
And another thing that I've learned from you, and should I ever decide to produce, I'm going to use you as my role model. I love the way you use samples because you don't use them in the classic first incarnation, well, the second incarnation of rap. You use the samples more for atmosphere than actually. I don't know how to describe it. Tell me your philosophy on samples.
I use them sort of as a tool, I guess, you know? I'm a fan of publishing, so definitely don't like to sample too much. But it's a tool, it's in your arsenal. So there's something to be said about like, oh, I don't sample. You know, I write all my own music. I mean, I'm not going to take something from somebody else. I'm like, cool, great, like, congratulations, I'm happy for you.
Right.
But you can, and what if it makes something better? And what if you use it in a way that helps?
Yep.
Then that is a tool. And so I want that tool and I use it. And what I try to do is like grab something, take a loop out of it, flip it, reverse it, distort it, chop it up, and then be like, did I create something? Okay, now can I play some parts on top of this? Did that like influence me to play a different progression there? Or what if I just take the bass line into a different place and sort of juxtapose it? Is that gonna work for me? And then what if I take out the sample? Oh wow, crazy, now I'm in a totally new place and I've created a palette and a starting place for a piece of music with a sample that I just use. And whether I keep it in or I take it out, it's a tool at the end of the day and a great one, you know?
Okay, Quarenta, I want you to help me formulate this question, okay?
All right, let's go.
Okay, I don't know quite, I've got a buddy, Craig Burbage, and he says all engineers do is make things louder, softer, brighter, duller. And that's pretty much true, except in your case, you've added another tool to that arsenal. And that tool, sometimes it feels to me like you were mixing and you said, you know what, I need to mix a keyboard in here. So you don't actually think as a producer when you add that part, you think as a mixer and it needs...
Yes.
Is that a good question?
Yes.
Okay, finish it for me and then answer it.
100% accurate. Well, I'm in a unique situation because my relationship with Drake, for instance, is, you know, I was his engineer at first, not his producer.
Right.
But we were on a very much a parallel. I mean, we used to share hotel rooms, we traveled together, we had to split our money to make it to where we got today, you know? So we had a mutual respect for each other and a trust that a lot of engineers and artists maybe don't have because they're not, you know, there's a sort of an authoritative relationship between the artist and the engineer and cussing at him and cracking a whip at his back while he's in the chair, you know? So me and Drake have a real respect and therefore a trust. So he let me do a lot of these things because we have such a great relationship and I'm so close to him and he trusts me. I'm able to actually go and do things as a producer that I would have no right or the balls to do with any other artist, right? I have a relationship, I can work with them on that level. So as a mixer, you know, if I don't feel the bass is strong enough, I'll make it stronger. If, you know, an enhancer isn't going to do it for me, I'll add it. You know, and I'll put those parts in, and I'll shift stuff, and I'll chop stuff. I'm pretty violent when it comes to mixing Drake's records because I know I can be, you know? And as long as I'm making it better, that's my objective at any cost, you know?
Not dissimilar to you back in the day. Certainly we worked together. You would replace things and go where you wanted to.
Yeah, I had to dial that back. I got in a little trouble because I wasn't working for Drake.
Not with me. I was cool with it.
Now I was wrong. I was a little disrespectful when I was doing that. Now I discuss it with the producer and give them options to choose from.
As I do as well, and that's a very fine line for me being a producer, right? Because I'm not trying to come and take anything from people, and I'm very mindful of that and very conscious of that. But if push comes to shove, if the conversation is like, oh, I'm not willing to share, or there's nothing there on the table for you, sorry, then like I'll still do it if I have to and not eat because I want to make the product as good as I can.
As you tee up Batter's Box, let me ask you something that came out recently. There were some opportunities to work on the Aaliyah record.
Yes.
You sort of had a point of view about it, and explain that.
Well, I mean, Aaliyah's a huge influence for me. So I grew up with a lot of older sisters, so there was a lot of music influence came from them. So Aaliyah was like, you know, I was in love with Aaliyah because my sisters were in love with Aaliyah. And so when that opportunity arose and I was approached, the premises I was approached, which was by her family, was, you know, we really think that she would want you to be a part of this project, and we would really be, you know, honored if you would help contribute to it. And that was, to me, the most phenomenal experience or opportunity. But it just got a little bit. Two things happened. One, it got a little political when Drake got involved because I went to Drake like, yo, I'm going to produce this Aaliyah record. Do you want help? And he was like, help. Like, let's do it. I'm in. Like, can I do it with you? And I was like, of course you can do it with me. Let's do it. And that created a lot of politics in the rap world as far as like, whoa, Drake? The Canadian kid is going to touch our baby girl's epic, legendary catalog? No. You know? And that became like extremely complicated. And so right away it was like, oh God, like, what do we do? You know, it didn't have to go there. It was my project. It wasn't Drake's, you know? But so we introduced that little bit of politics. And then, you know, it was definitely a tangled situation to unravel, just as far as putting out a posthumous project for anybody.
They're complicated.
And it's tough. You know, I don't want to. It's difficult. I want it to be a very positive experience, and at times I felt like maybe it wasn't going to go that direction, so I wasn't something I was interested in.
You struggle with that.
Well, and also when you explained it to us before we got on air, what I took away from it is that you just wanted to be respectful to her memory and the way it went.
And her family as well.
And her family, absolutely.
Yep. And respect their wishes.
Which is the honorable way to do it. Yeah. My friend, how's your arm? Loose?
It's great. I might have a surprise because I had another question, but I'm not going to ask it. I'm going to weave it in skillfully into batter's box.
Oh, boy.
Let's tee up batter's box, baby. Listen, you've been on your game, man.
Oh, no. The man's a pro. I'm predicting sad results for me, as usual, big man, because you always vote for the other guy.
Batter's box. Batter's box time. Let's roll it.
Piano.
Synthesizers.
Bass.
Synthesizers.
Okay. If you say synthesizers, you're going to lose.
I was going to say it.
Strings.
No. Motu Symphonic.
Ooh.
Which is a synthesizer.
No, it's not.
Delays. Delays.
H delay today.
Ooh. There's a
no, Cooper Time Cube.
Oh, wow.
Sweet.
Man, he went esoteric on me.
He did.
Sorry.
That's all right. No.
Changed my mind. Had to throw some UAD
Absolutely.
in there.
Snare.
MPC.
Kick.
Machine.
Oh, okay. Lead vocals.
Channel strip. New Pro Tools 10 version.
Really? Oh, wow.
The stock channel strip that was introduced in 10.
I'm going to have to go back to that because it's just...
It's modeled after Euphonics.
I know.
Yeah.
I worked on it. Stereo bus.
Stereo bus. Studer A800 UAD.
Good one. Verb.
Altaverb 7.
7?
Yep. Just came out.
Renaissance axe.
Yes.
But you use them on drums, don't you?
I do sometimes.
And why?
That goes
I do
back.
Too. Ask Cole. I do too.
Just anticipation, anxiety. I don't know, it's a vicious compressor, but like it literally is an axe. It'll hack stuff up in pieces.
When SPL doesn't give me what I want, I go to Renaissance axe.
Me too, 100%. It gives me a little bit more.
Yeah.
Yes, I need to check you guys' DNA.
Yeah.
Absolutely, that's fabulous.
But it's funny because I feel guilty every time I use it.
Me too.
I'm like, I shouldn't be doing this.
I was thinking about doing an Into the Lair entitled it Plugins I Abuse and Use the Wrong Way. And that was the one that inspired that because I'll use Max Bass on vocals and you'll use auto-tune on a rapper like you did on Headlines. Yeah. There's an abuse there. Why'd you do that?
Just pulling things into that little... Okay, auto-tune gives you a very much like a generic synthetic feel, right? If you use it too much or you hear too much processing, it becomes very like computerized or whatever the case is. For certain types of music, though, it clicks. It works.
Yeah, but there wasn't a note value in that song on the rap. I guess there was a little bit.
There was. And that was actually on Drake's part a change in rap music. He sang that song.
You're right.
The whole thing.
Right.
It's all melody-based, distinctly. Every single word is distinctly between the three notes of that melody. And nobody was doing that in rap at that stage, you know? That was really early. And that was a chance for us, too. Wow. Are people going to judge you for this? You're singing. And nobody noticed. Because of the way he delivered it. No one came back like he's singing. No, he was singing the whole song.
His pitch is pretty good to begin with.
Well, I used auto-tune on the song. Come on, Dave.
Let's. He came down from the north and scored.
I conceded that a while back.
He was good.
I mean, the man's good.
Sean Gore, are you over there in corner office?
Yep, I'm still over here.
You got some questions for our man?
Yeah, let's rock it. This first one's from John Allenson. With a discography containing some of the biggest artists in music today, what did it feel like being in the studio with a household name for the first time?
I try to approach everybody as normal human beings and give them the benefit of the doubt that, they're just regular people. And for the most part, that works, But scared. I don't know. The first time I walked into a studio with Eminem, I was definitely terrified, you know. but it ended up being a great and wonderful experience. And I think if you just approach it from that standpoint, that we're all just normal, regular people, and everyone just needs to like be comfortable to create a comfortable environment to be able to work and an atmosphere to be able to work. Like that's what I try to achieve. But yeah, it was definitely difficult in the beginning, you know. But I had Drake with me because me and Drake are very much a team. So it's like I had him to lean on always, you know. When we met Kanye for the first time, like Drake was the buffer, you know. It was Drake and Kanye meeting. I just got to be in the background like, hey Kanye, nice to meet you, sir, and then let them talk. So
but
it was great.
On Forever, you recorded Eminem's vocal.
Yeah, well, I went to Detroit. I went to Detroit to actually finish that record with M and his engineer at his personal studio, and so we just pulled it up on the SSL there, and it was an interesting experience to mix that record actually, because I was really confused as to how it was going to happen and what was going to happen. But at that stage in Drake's career, that was, one of our first songs of that magnitude with artists of that magnitude ever.
Right.
And it was actually a phenomenal opportunity for Drake to have heavy hitters like that on a song when he was brand new in the game. So of course Eminem's response was, well, I'm mixing the record and you're coming to my studio. That's how this is going to happen.
Period.
So I was like, of course. Let's go.
Let's go.
So I have no idea if I'm touching the record, if I'm tracking, what I'm doing there.
Right.
Like I thought maybe, am I there as like as an A&R to like oversee this process for Drake? I have no idea what's going on. So we pulled up the record, I spit out the files from Pro Tools. We got everything up on the G Plus on a 4K I think he had there in his room. And his engineer started to mix it with M. So M would sort of call out the cues and, more top end and, it's classic. I mean, who knows what he was doing to those goddamn EQs. Might have been undone after. But, he sort of just went to town on the SSL and then popped out like, yo, I'm done. Like, come in and do your thing. So then I came in, I did my thing on the SSL, and then maybe something I wanted to achieve back in the box. I went back to the box and redid something and then spit the file back out, pulled it back up on the mix and just kept tweaking. So I think we might have gone back and forth on some of the same knobs a few times, but we just sort of kept, everybody kind of just touched the desk until we were like, yo, we did it. It sounds great.
Sounds like
it was a really cool experience from a mix standpoint. And then when I walked away and the record came out, my credit was there and everything was handled really great. So it was a really cool experience.
Chongor, give me another one.
Dwayne Wright, where do you go for inspiration, and are there any places you find yourself returning to spark new ideas?
Internet.
There you go.
Anything. Music, obviously, is where I'm going to find inspiration. So whether it be a stack of old records or my iTunes or YouTube or whatever, I mean, I want to go look for music that I feel like is going to take me to a nostalgic place that will then bring me somewhere that will inspire me to make something. And, a lot of the times that's to my childhood or the things I remember. Very rarely is it, rap music or is it anything contemporary. It's usually things that are old. And, my go-to, like center, like clean my musical palette is like, between, Queen and Dylan and Van Morrison. And those are the things that are going to bring me back to a grounded place where I now can take a fresh perspective, and all the way to the Beach Boys when it comes to songwriting and hit making. I understand that stuff, and it's very important to me in my process, 100%.
It's so weird. The second studio I ever worked at had the original Van Morrison multi-tracks, and I'd sneak in there after everybody left and try to mix them again myself, and that was inspirational.
And we're always telling people in our audience to go back and look at that stuff. Don't think it's not cool. It's super cool. There's stuff to learn there. Those are some of the greatest books you can really open up and read. You know what I'm saying?
And it's funny, of course, myself, I'm 30, so at this stage of my life, you have to almost watch some of those documentaries to realize like how crazy some of these guys were. Don't get it twisted, man. Like the Eagles were no joke, They invented trash in hotel rooms, It's like these are the original guys.
That's right.
So if you want to know anything about what it's like to be a rock star in 2014, I mean, you can just take a look back. It's all there, and it's these aren't like old guys who are out of date. These are the pioneers who wrote the damn book. Go take a cue, right?
The original gangster, Frank Sinatra.
There you go, right? That's the one.
He wasn't part of my childhood, but my parents, and go back and look at some of the stuff those guys did. They played big
Rat Pack
level.
Yeah, the Rat Pack was no joke.
No joke. Chongor, one more.
From FL Freeman, with producers such as Il Angelo, The Weeknd, and yourself, do you feel producers from Toronto have their own unique sound?
I mean, do we all have the same sound?
have an element that's the same.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, that's a difficult question for me to answer because the Toronto sound to me was defined, if we're talking about urban music or rap music or black music out of Canada, it was defined by a few people a long time ago. Some producers from Canada that held the sort of hip hop community on their back. Characters like Socrates and Chaos, and a lot of other names that I'm sure nobody would know at this point, but God bless them all. I love them all dearly, and they were all my inspirations, and they created the Toronto sound for me, as I understand it. That's very different than what I put on the table.
Right.
So that to me will always be the Toronto sound. I am sensitive to the fact that now there is a new sound that represents the city and Toronto, and I guess that we do have something. I mean, but I don't like that question because I'm not about to sit here and tell you because my music is the most visible out of the city that I am the sound of Toronto.
Right.
That I have a problem with, okay?
I understand.
When everybody else is visible of what they're doing, then we can assess how much of a Toronto sound there is. Do I have a sound? Sure. I'll take credit for that. But I can't put that whole city's sound on my back at this point,
Well said.
Crazy how fast the time goes, right? I mean, it's always that we never notice the time when it's somebody so good. It's just like, can we keep going? Can we keep going?
Well, these are like my brothers.
I know, man. I know, man. It's the last several weeks have just been extraordinary spending time here. Yeah, that's really true. That's really true. Yeah. One of the fun things we talked about is, we're doing this award show. It's a big step for Dave and I. We decided to just hang it out there and try to take this community that's been so good to us. And try to give something back to them, but also make them part of the show. So they get to vote, they get to be part of the formation committees, pros and amateurs. Good idea? What do you think?
Phenomenal idea.
Oh, cool.
It's tough, engineers and producers and the people that are literally on the front lines of this industry, and as we all know at this table, clocking ridiculous, unfathomable hours and working unlike any other industry that actually has guidelines and standards we don't really. It's a difficult thing, and it takes its toll on you, and it's tough. Like the recognition is very, very difficult to achieve in this business on our level. Outside of engineer of the year at the Grammys. Which is a very narrow-minded approach because think of all the genres and all the people that are working and doing these things, and none of them get recognized. And at the end of the day, that is our front line. Drake's my brother, and I love him, but at the end of the day. I'll say with the exception of him, artists are interchangeable, and the producers and the people that are actually doing the labor are the ones that can work with many artists and have real longevity in this business.
And there's
that's
no
not subjective, right?
Exactly.
So it's like to honor those people is so important to me, and I'm very passionate about that too because now as a label owner and a publisher and all these other ventures that I have in my life and in this business, it comes very clear to me how important an engineer is to a process and how a good engineer or a bad engineer will make the difference of the success of an artist and whether or not they can pull their stuff together and get a project out the door.
One of the roots of the idea was...
I was going to slide an amen into this.
Oh, well, let's do amen. Amen. One of the roots of it was that now is really a hybrid. The producer, songwriter, and engineer are all doing a little bit. You resemble that. You are that.
Well, it's like, the mixer, it's harder to be just a mixer in today's day and age because, you have
a little bit of all
even like KY is a great friend of mine who used to work with Lil Wayne and now does all the 2 Chainz and lots of other rap stuff. But, he's mixing the crap out of records right for these guys in these studios. Like, they're not even going to mixers. He's mixing half of these big rap records that are running the whole of America right now.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And it's like, he made a transition from just tracking engineer to mixer like that.
Exactly.
Because the technology's there, the computers are there, the resources are there, and it's just a little different than it used to be. Yeah. So a lot of that stuff is starting to come a lot tighter together, I think.
Your sanction, and we hope your involvement. We want you involved. Seriously.
Please, I would love to be involved. No, as I said, that's a super important part of my daily life is fighting that struggle,
Right.
To make sure that the people on our side of the business are treated properly and respected because without us, not much moves,
You touched on something that is actually the impetus of this show that you spoke about when you were talking about it. You talked about all the hours and labor and time we spend, and sometimes not in the most healthy ways and all that kind of stuff. And it can have a deleterious effect on you if you're not
100%.
careful. Dave survived some struggles. You survived some struggles with MS, right?
Yep.
And what I think is fascinating for our audience, because we get emails from people who are struggling with all kinds of things, some mental, some physical, but they just want some inspiration. So the point of it is that you can achieve, you can surmount things, correct?
You can, 100%. And it's difficult with any disease or anything that's debilitating you. But when it comes to my fight with MS, I just pushed through it, I just kept working and didn't feel sorry for myself, and just thought of situations that I could be in that could potentially be worse. And if I could still move my hands and get a laptop onto my my bed, then I could continue to work, and that kept me going, you know. And also it's like, it's more gratifying when you have more obstacles to overcome to find your success. And but I do have to balance it. I'm not going to pretend that I don't have days where it's like, okay, I'm done.
It's not today.
Yeah. So there's a fine balance, but I try to work on that because as an engineer, you pride yourself on being indestructible, and I'll go for 4 days without sleeping. And my name 40 came from this.
That's right. Hard drive came from that.
It's tough. You have to sort of tell yourself, like, okay, stop. Like, you got to stop, man. Like, stop drinking coffee, just relax, go lay down and go to sleep, because if you don't get some rest, you're going to hurt yourself.
So let me say this. From one Canadian to another, what an inspiration, brother.
Thank you.
Literally.
That means a lot. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Dave, take us home.
Okay, guys. We've assembled this group of people, and we're a cool group. We take care of each other. We look out for each other. It's about caring and giving, and in that spirit, I want you guys to run over to the National Multiple Sclerosis Society website, type in Noah Shebib, and you'll come up with several things I want you to read, even if you don't come away with anything else. But the fact that you never say to someone like Noah, but you look so normal. If you don't come away with anything else, you've learned something. But dive deep into it, and there's multiple other things that we need to start taking care of with these blessings that we've been given. So we'll see you next week.